Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our show. This is Diane Sears. I'm the co-founder of Go for the Greens. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about us and what we do in case you're new. We are a nonprofit foundation. We're based in Florida, but we are an international foundation. We have people from all over the North America mostly who help us put on events and programs. So Go for the Greens is based on 4 founding principles. One is business growth for women business owners. We help connect women business owners and corporations and government agencies so they can all do business together. Our second pillar is all about sustainability. We teach businesses and people how to be more sustainable. And our third pillar is about golf as a business tool, teaching women how to get into golf. And that's why today we're really excited to have some people who are in the sports world with us. And our fourth and newest pillar is about mentorship and mentoring young women who are in high school and college. And that's what this program is all about. So we're very excited to have 2 young women who have become our chief interviewers, and one is in high school and one is in college, and you'll meet them very soon. I'd like to hand it over for a minute to my co-founder, Cindy Chase. Cindy, would you like to say something?
Yes, thank you, Diane. And thank you for everybody, for all of you being on the call. Thank you, or the webinar. Thank you to our speakers today from Nike, and thank you to our young leaders of tomorrow, Leslie and Jasmin, for being the co-hosts of this and doing a great job with facilitating the actual event. And for those of you that Diane had already talked about with Go for the Greens, for those of you that don't know, we will be having an event in September at Go for the Greens. It'll be virtual plus physical. If you have the opportunity, please go to the Go for the Greens website. I'm sure that Diane will be probably putting that in the chat room so that you all can go on and take a look at it. It is a program that you do have to fill out an application for, and we only accept I think 30 or 35 people. I don't know the number right now off the top of my head, but we encourage all of you to fill out the application and either participate virtually or try to participate physically. But we'll get to talk to you a little bit more about that later. But thank you to all of you young leaders of tomorrow, and I really look forward to this fabulous webinar sponsored by Nike today. And going to give a shout out to my friend Clayton Judge, who's down there and not on the video, but thank you very much, Clayton, for making this happen. And I'm going to go radio silent right now, so please pay attention. Diane's going to give you the ground rules, but the chat room is a great thing. So for any of the questions that you may have to these well-experienced women, please make sure you participate and have a great time. Enjoy it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Before we get started, we wanted to show you this very special video that we have from Nike. I'm going to try this and see if I can share my screen with you. Just one moment. Okay, let me see. Do you all see my screen at all? Yes, okay. Let me see if I can get this to maximize. Okay, so this is a very special video we found. It makes me cry every time, so I'm going to try not to cry.
If we show emotion, we're called dramatic. If we want to play against men, we're nuts. And if we dream of equal opportunity, delusional. When we stand for something, we're unhinged. It's super, it's gonna need to calm down. When we're too good, there's something wrong with us. And if we get angry, we're hysterical, irrational, or just being crazy. But a woman running a marathon was crazy. Officials tried to pull her off the course. A woman boxing was crazy. A woman dunking, crazy. Coaching an NBA team, crazy. A woman competing in a hit job, changing her sport, landing a double cork 1080, or winning 23 Grand Slams, having a baby, and then coming back for more. Crazy, 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 and crazy. So if they want to call you crazy, fine. Show them what crazy can do.
Okay, isn't that fun? All right, hold on 1 second. Now I've got to turn this video off. Just a minute, bear with me. Okay, so that was pretty fun. And we thank Nike for that video. Like I said, it makes me cry every time. All right, with that, I'd like to introduce our two guests today. Eunice Lee, hello, and we'll hear more about you. Okay, and then Aquila Hussain, hello, we'll hear from you too. And then our two interviewers, Leslie Garcia-Medina and Jasmin Alanis. And with that, I am going to pop off and I'm going to let Jasmin and Leslie handle the interview. So thank you everyone for being with us. All right.
So hi everyone, it's so good to see all of the names on here. Before we start, we want to give a massive thank you to our two speakers today. It's such an honor getting the chance to interview you both. And again, to our audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave it on the chat and we'll make sure you get it answered. Now, to start off to our first question, it's been so fascinating getting to hear what our past experts do for their work and their routines. And so for that reason, our first question is going to be, if you could describe your job a little bit more and what your everyday schedule looks like, and maybe if you could incorporate how it was before and after that transition to remote work. Who wants to go first?
I can go first. So my name's Eunice, and maybe I'll give a little bit of background too, just for context. So I played tennis in college, and my first job out of college, I was actually a second grade teacher for 2 years. So I did Teach for America, and then did a big change to supply management for another 2 years, and then was most recently in business school at the University of Chicago before I came to Nike. And at Nike, I've been here for 2 years working in global marketing procurement. So have mostly been working on our partnerships with our creative design and production agencies that create a lot of the amazing films as well as social media advertisements that you see today. And a typical day is very different. I think it's a mix of working with the marketing teams within Nike, and Nike's such a large corporation, we call it a matrix. So kind of navigating the matrix, working with teams across the whole company, as well as partnering with a lot of our different agencies as well. So that could look like before COVID, bouncing around campus to different buildings to meet with our internal teams, as well as phone calls and emails with the marketing agencies that we work with. And since working remotely, everything's turned into lots of Zoom calls. So lots back-to-back Zoom calls has been what life has been like for the last 2 months.
So happy to share my part of the world a bit more. Hi everyone, I'm Aquila Hussain. I am the Director of Materials Transformation and Strategy at Nike. And before I go into a bit more about what that entails, super quick, my background is I'm an engineer by training, mechanical engineer, and worked in that field for several years before switching gears into to business school and then management consulting. So I worked at McKinsey & Company for 5 years before switching over to Nike in this director of strategy role. And what my work entails is looking at, in order to create a Nike product, and I work on the footwear side of the house. If you think of a shoe and all the parts and components that go into making a shoe, my world is about thinking about where these different materials that go into our footwear are coming from globally, and what are the impacts to that supply chain, to that global supply chain, and how do we help mitigate risk and think about driving flexibility to adapt to the changing global environment. Typical day at work, there is a lot of discussion, brainstorming, and conversations that help. Like Eunice mentioned, it's a very large organization with teammates from many different functions and backgrounds contribute to the overall solution. So there's a lot of constant dialogue and discussion with different teammates. And so it's a mix of active discussion time, and I'm also someone who likes to process information alone. So I definitely block off some time to have that retrospective, introspective conversation and thinking for myself.
Thank you for your responses. Well, another question, a follow-up question. Since you started working at Nike before everything kind of went virtual, what was your favorite part about your job? Something, whether it be weekly meetings or maybe you guys had some sort of like traditions, what was your favorite part of doing it all? Or what is your favorite part? Sorry.
I think for me, and I think many people would probably say this, is being able to, the people and the when you bring together diverse groups of people. And so I think that's been something I've really appreciated. I've been part of a diversity inclusion network called ASCEND, which is the employee resource group for Asians and Pacific Islanders and Middle Easterners. And I've really enjoyed being part of that group and creating programming to kind of elevate the voices and representation of my community, but also going to events and programming of the 7 other diversity inclusion networks on campus to be able to learn about other communities and what makes them so special, as well as what are some of the challenges that they go through as well.
I think for me, it is my favorite part of the day used to be the walk from my car into our campus or into a particular Nike building. So Nike World Headquarters is based in Portland, Oregon. And so we're in the Pacific Northwest, and it's a beautiful, gorgeous campus. And regardless of which building you work in at Nike, for me, just taking that few moments or minutes, the walk from the car into the building, to center myself, to almost get in the zone, be mindful of like what is coming up ahead for me in the day, and switching from home mode, mom mode, to the Nike mode. Really used to help a lot, and I definitely miss that working from home.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's so fascinating just to hear what you guys do for work. And for this question, you guys have such incredible backgrounds, but for this question, we really want to ask, what drew you to the Nike Corporation to work there?
Yeah, for me, I think it's really Nike's mission statement, and it's to bring inspiration and innovation to every athlete in the world. And athlete has an asterisk to say, if you have a body, you're an athlete. And so I think when I moved into the corporate world, one thing I knew that I wanted to take with me from Teach for America was working for an organization whose mission I believed in and who had a message that could inspire the next generation. And so I feel like there's very few companies when I went to business school that came to do recruiting that I felt could achieve that for me. And then having grown up playing sports my whole life, playing in college, I think I've just grown up with the brand and have seen the power of sports. And then lastly, I think I really enjoy creativity. And so my mom is actually an artist, and I knew I wanted to work at a company that was very creative, because I know that's something that energizes me. So at the core, Nike is a marketing and design company. And so you're just surrounded by so many people with creativity in so many different facets. And so I think that's part of what is so special about Nike is you come to this place and everyone is thinking about how can they kind of inspire each other and inspire the world.
Similar inspiration for me, I'd say probably a slightly different twist is that for me it was, given my engineering background, I've always been deeply passionate about the product. So I've always wanted to work for companies that have a very strong grounding and a deep passion for the product that they put out in the marketplace. And Nike definitely checks that box. But in addition to that, what attracted me to the Nike brand was that just what Nike stands for, right? As it is a perfect example of how we enable sports, and sports in turn levels the playing field for everybody. It doesn't matter what gender, race, age group, background you come from. If you have the talent and the passion, then you're part of the team. And that messaging really resonated deeply with me, and continues to as we work at Nike.
I really love how you both added the, Eunice said, if you have a body, then you're an athlete, and how Aquila said, that really does overrule self-image and like she was saying, race and gender, which is something that we need right now. And so I think it's really important that we remind ourselves that there is an equality among all of us, and we can all be athletes. Definitely does give me hope to be an athlete. So our next question, number 4. What are some things you wish you would have known when you first began your career at Nike? So like Aquila said, before entering Nike mode, what are some things that you wish you would have known?
Yeah, I think for me, there's been a mantra at Nike that has kind of become my own personal mantra, and that's progress over perfection. So I think before coming to Nike, I was definitely a perfectionist, a little bit hesitant to speak up or move things forward unless I knew that everything was perfect and I had all my ducks in a row. But something that I've appreciated about Nike is they are almost about fail fast and then learn quicker so you can get to the right solution. So I think there was times that when I first began that I was a little bit nervous to take risks or voice my opinions or ideas until they were perfectly packaged. But I'm really appreciative because I think Nike has a culture that really encourages you to just really prioritize progress and not be so caught up in making everything perfect.
Yeah, I would definitely echo what Eunice said about progress over perfection. And the two things I'll add to it is one is curiosity and two is resilience. I think not just at Nike, but what I found, I would almost give this advice to myself as a 3-year-old, right? Like you see that, and I say 3-year-old because I have a little 3-year-old daughter, and you see that in kids, curiosity and resiliency are just such a natural tendency, and somewhere along the process of growing up, we may lose parts of it. But I think it's important to hold on to those two characteristics, even in a professional career, in a workplace, right? Being, no matter how many educational degrees you have or how many years of work experience you have, there's always something new to learn every day. And showing up with an opened mindset, with curiosity, even in an area that you might be that have deep knowledge and experience, but curiosity to understand another point of view is incredible in helping get at a better solution. And the second piece on resiliency, I think, is important with curiosity, because it's easy when you've invested time and effort in coming up with a solution or an idea, to get attached to it. And it may not be the perfect idea, but it's your idea. So I for sure tend to get attached to it. And so you're showing up with this mindset that as I seek through my curiosity different points of view, that I'm going to be open to change and pivot as needed. And you know what, if that means that whatever I did had to be torn down again to be rebuilt, that's fine, because with resiliency comes the determination that you will build up the solution again and make the best of the situation at hand.
Yeah, thank you so much for that response. I really love the points you made on curiosity and resiliency. I think for me, especially as a college student, I come across those times where I'm not as confident in my ideas, whether it's a classmate who doesn't agree with them or getting a bad grade on an assignment that you work so hard for. But I think you made a really excellent point on being open-minded and not sort of just not letting anyone sort of tear down that idea that you have. But also as a college student, I really wanted to ask this question. In business school, a lot of my classmates have big dreams of working with big brands, Nike, Apple, Google. But for this question, we wanted to ask, how do you get to work at a corporation like Nike? And what should we do in college/high school to take on a career like this?
Yeah, I can answer more of the tactical question first, and then I think the more of the passion and expertise side after that. But tactically, one of the ways you can work at Nike or other big corporations is oftentimes they have internship programs for college students and business school students. So I think that's something that you can talk to your colleges. Nike has relationships with certain colleges, so you can reach out to your just the career center at your schools to see if there is a pipeline to apply to those internships. And then I think even if your school doesn't have something set up, it's looking at the Nike website or the websites of the companies you're interested in. Sometimes they have postings that you can apply to directly, such as internships, or Nike even has something called the Serena Design Crew for people who are really passionate about design. They have an apprenticeship. So sometimes there's programs that you can proactively apply and try to get into. In terms of what could make you stand out, I think think about Nike. Nike is a company founded on passion. And so I think that's passion for the brand, passion for sports. And I think that can apply to any company. I think if you can set yourself apart by really knowing and understanding what the company stands for, knowing their products, knowing their values. I think knowing that inside and out is good for any company that you apply to, as well as I would say working at Nike or any large corporation, diversity matters. They wouldn't want to hire the same person who thinks exactly the same way, is good at exactly the same thing. So something like Leslie that you mentioned before the call, like really being you, figure out what it is that you're passionate about, what it is that you want to really dig deeper into and learn and become an expert on. And I just want to preface that with saying people change careers all the time and change interests all the time. So choosing one doesn't mean you're locked in. But I think it is something, you have something to show if you're able to come to an interview or on your resume, show that you've dedicated a lot of passion to building something, to creating something that drives results. And so I would say really hone in on your own passions as well, and that'll shine through to Nike and any employer.
Yeah. The only thing I'll add to what Eunice said is, rather than focusing on the fact that you want to get to work for a particular company or a particular brand immediately outside of college or after college, that's definitely a goal you if you have, you should pursue. But I'd also encourage you to think about the big picture for you. Like, where do you see yourself 10 years from now, 5 years from now, 2 years from now, and sort of tracking your own trajectory. Not to say that, you know, that's exactly what's going to happen. And in fact, the as you stay curious and in your journey, in your professional journey, you'll realize that, oh, I thought I wanted to be a certain thing, but actually something else about a different job excites you more. So my point is, think of the big picture for what is it that you think you're interested in, your passion is in, and where would you like to be long term. And then I would say chart out a trajectory for yourself based on that. And the trajectory isn't always a straight line from point A to where you want to be, right? It's oftentimes, which is very true for me in my career, has been making parallel moves and backtracking sometimes, and sometimes completely shifting gears, right? I have a master's in engineering, and then I went on to get a master's in business, which I never thought I was interested in business. So just you keep learning and changing your course, and it's more important, one, definitely to have fun in the process, because you spend a lot of hours at work. So if you don't enjoy it, it's not good. And also, two, is always, you know, as you're thinking of companies and brands, it is not just what do you think the brand is looking for, but also reflecting on what is it that you are looking for from a brand, from a potential future employer, and digging deeper and researching their culture, their work culture. What are they vision, mission, value set? What do they stand for? So that you can judge for yourself too, like, is this something that a potential employer you'd want to invest your time in?
And now that we're on this topic, what kind of experiences would you say are necessary to land a spot in this career, or any experiences that you would say were an essential step to get to where you are now?
I think there's certain, when you think about certain roles, some are very expertise focused and some are more general skill sets. So if you're going to be more of a general manager, I think some of those skill sets can come from many different places, like learning how to manage people, learning how to influence various teams, learning how to lead a team to a similar vision and work together. I will say there's certain if there's certain jobs that you want that require you to have specific experience. So if you want to be a designer at Nike, you're going to have to go to design school and have design experience. I think if you want to be in marketing, I think you would probably need to have either worked in a marketing agency before, or studied marketing, or done internships in marketing. So I will say it depends. I think it really depends on which role you're going for. So what I would say is if you have a sense of what kind of job it is that you want, not only think about the company, but which role do you want within that company, and speak to those people whose job you want in 5-10 years, and ask them what skills they look for when they're hiring, and what experiences have helped them in their role. So I think it's a hard question to answer, because I think it really does depend on the role that you're looking to get into.
Yeah. To add to that, I'd say, so definitely it very much depends on what area you're looking to get into. But in general, I'd say 2 life skills that have saved me when it comes to applying that, in addition to curiosity and resiliency, is I think how your problem solving approach, right? So how you approach a problem, whether it's in life or at work, and we'll speak about work setting in this case. To me, there are two types of problem solving. One is an analytical problem solving. So being able to leverage facts and data in order to tackle a particular problem. And in this day and age, being able to leverage data is big. Doesn't matter what field, what function, what industry. Being able to have that firm grasp on facts and data and analytics to some extent is always going to be a valuable skill set. So so definitely try to build that up in whatever area you're currently in. The second piece of problem solving is conceptual problem solving. And conceptual problem solving, as the name goes, is more about, how do you, if you have a very large, ambiguous problem, how do you define a problem statement so that you can then start to break it up into smaller chunks and then try to solve those smaller chunks without getting overwhelmed by the size of the problem. So this, it can very easily be applied in our personal lives as well. So I'd say just having that problem solving mindset, and in whether it's your college assignments or school assignments, or approaching applications and interviews, always taking that mindset, I think has always helped me.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. I do want to add on to the start of this topic. We did receive a question on the chat, which is, Aquila and Eunice, did you use any kind of tools or books to chart out your trajectory for your career when you were in college, and you can recommend?
No book as such comes to mind. I'm sure there are a lot of resources out there that, like the career management center in your school could recommend, probably more current books and editions than what I used. But I'd say, I think the biggest piece is at least for me, was the introspective piece of it, right? Like what is my value set, and what is my passion, and being able to work for a company where my core values and my passion will be resonated in a workplace.
Yeah, I think I agree with Aquila. I can't think of any particular books. I think college is great for that, where they have all these clubs, they have all these speaking events. So I would encourage you to go to all of them and just explore. I think college and high school is that time to really explore what is out there and just learn. And I think in terms of how to think about it, I think, I don't know if this is helpful, but in business school, something that I did realize is it's really difficult to find a job that meets all of your criteria. And so the way that I thought about how do I find a job after business school was thinking about different criteria and then prioritizing them. So one thing to consider is the location. Are you okay living anywhere for this job, or is that your main priority? So kind of putting in each of these buckets, what are your top 3 choices, and what are I would never move to X, Y, and Z for a job. So I thought about location. I thought about the industry. Do I want to work in consumer goods? Do I want to work in technology? Do I want to work in industrial supply? So thinking about that. The company size, I think that makes a huge difference. If you're working in a startup, you get to work on a little bit of everything, and it's amazing in a lot of ways. But then if you work in a large company, your work is much more focused. And then thinking about company culture, there's a wide range in company culture as well. And then what is your functional role within that? Are you in marketing, finance? supply chain operations. And then the biggest thing I think about is your opportunity to grow and learn in that role. I think when you're working at internships in high school and college and your first job out of college, you should be really thinking about what support do you have for your own career development and mentorship. I think sometimes that makes a larger difference than necessarily the brand name.
Thank you so much for all the advice. I feel throughout these past 30 minutes, I feel like it's all been so great. So that's why I'm not sure whether or not to ask this question, but what is one piece of additional advice you'd give to someone wanting to pursue this type of career?
This type of career being working for Nike specifically?
Yes.
I'd say I'll share one personal experience. Initially, when I was thinking of the Nike brand, I was intimidated by the fact that I'm not an athlete. I was born and raised in India. I came here to go to school, but growing up in India, we didn't necessarily have easy access to parks and playgrounds. India is a very densely populated country. And so, my focus was always, uh, school and classes and less on sports. And so I was very curious and wanted to work for the Nike brand. And I made this assumption that Nike would only look at potential candidates who had that, who were athletes previously, which is not the case, right? Like Eunice mentioned, most large brands, and definitely true at Nike, were looking for a very diverse group of smart individuals. And because diversity being the key word here is going to help us solve the world's most complex problems. And so I almost had to reframe the situation and say, okay, I'm not an athlete in the traditional sense of the word. And like Eunice described, Nike says that if you have a body, you're an athlete. I didn't know that before coming into Nike. I know that now. But I reframed the situation saying, okay, what qualities do I have that I can help contribute to a brand like Nike, and focused more on building up those skill sets and highlighting those sets in the interview process. So my guidance is, rather than thinking about many boxes that you may not check in a traditional interview list, focus on what boxes do you check, and double down in highlighting those strengths that you have as an individual.
Yeah, and I think the only other advice I'd have would be doing your research. So if it is a company like Nike or any company, finding all the information that you can online, reading books. If you're really interested in Nike, there's a book called Shoe Dog, which talks about how Nike was founded and the history, which is Nike's really cares a lot about its roots and its DNA, as well as if we're going to work at Nike, it's really helpful to know about the footwear and apparel industry. So starting to research what are new trends in that industry, what is the future of that industry. Like for right now, for Nike, it's all about e-commerce and digital growth. And so trying to think about what is that company's future, what are they looking at strategically in their future, and kind of understanding their business strategy. You can read the financial and investor reports in public companies as well. So I think that's something that you can do easily without anyone else to really understand that company and the industry it works in.
Great advice from both of you. And Aquila, I really like what you said about diversity is going to solve the world's most complex problems. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how my cultural background and where I was coming from was kind of a setback or a, how do you say it? They say like a pebble in the road or something like it was definitely something that held me back from even applying to this program, but it all goes back to confidence. And I was reading a question, I believe it was from Cindy. She said, how do you go to leadership and ask for advancement within the organization with confidence and no fear? Asking for additional responsibility is daring and crazy, yet daring.
Mhm. Yeah, something that I think many of us grapple with almost every day. My advice there is, I think in order to ask for more responsibility, step one is that you've got to be killing it in your current role, right? Whatever that role is, I think table stakes is that you've got to be doing a great job for what you're being, your current lead for. That's, I think, table stakes. And if you check that box, then I think being able to go up, and I think it's the fine line between persistence and insistence, like sharing to your senior managers or your leadership that, hey, look, I believe that I have a lot more to offer. So again, reframing that I have a lot more to offer to this company or to this institution in this ways, and outlining what those ways are, and then saying, I'm sharing this with you so that I see an opportunity and I can step into it, or if you managers see any opportunities that I can step into it, please keep me in mind. And one, I would set the stage that way. And then for any follow-up conversations on that, I would make sure that I schedule a meeting that is very clear. The discussion topic is going to be on career pathing, or taking on additional responsibility, as opposed to springing it up in a hallway conversation or in any different conversation, so that it's clear that your manager understands the time that you're asking for is to have that very specific conversation. They are in the right frame of mind to talk to you about it. So I'll reiterate that I think it's the absolutely being assertive and framing of what you bring to the table, and how you can help support, I think is important, and to making sure that you're being persistent without being insistent on something.
Yeah, I agree with everything Aquila said. And I think to add upon that, I think it's being really clear with your manager in any role should be invested in your development and investing in you and your career. So as you even are talking in the early days about your own career development, think about skills that you want to improve and work on, and then helping your manager understand those so that it's on their radar, to be able to see if there's opportunities that could help you hone those skills. But I think on the other hand, it's also, if you go to your leader and say you want more responsibility, I think part of it's also a collaboration, being able to have done some work on the outside as well, looking for what could that potential opportunity be. So not going to them, just asking them to give you more responsibility, but maybe having had thought about different projects that you know are on the docket that you can help support, or if there's even different opportunities outside of that manager's purview in a different function. There's something at Nike called stretches. So even if you're, say, in one department in one function in finance, but are really interested in strategy, some organizations are also supportive of you stretching into a different department to learn different skills. So I think you have to, maybe not right at the beginning, but need to also be sharp on what you want and what it is that you want from that development opportunity.
Thank you. I'm really glad that Cindy brought up the Dream Crazy ad that we showed at the beginning. And for me, I have always viewed Nike as being a very empowering brand. And, you know, seeing those types of ads is so inspiring. You know, as women, we're always just told that we can't sort of amount to anything or like do certain things, sort of just how that ad says. And sort of in your experience working with Nike, for this question asks, how has Nike influenced your way of thinking? What are some ways that Nike has impacted you positively?
Yeah, I think for me, I've always really appreciated Nike's message that is inclusive. So even when it says athlete and with the asterisks, if you have a body, you're an athlete. And so I think really taking that to heart. And so I think that's also made me think about Nike being a leader. As a leader, making sure the way that you empower your teams is also mindful of the entire team, and making sure that you're inclusive in your language and the way that you represent yourself. And so that's one. I think I love the Crazy Dreams ad. I think it's something that I know for me culturally, I'm Korean, and know that sometimes there's less cultural like encouragement to kind of be out there, take risks, be bold, be loud. And that's something that I've really appreciated about Nike, that even though I might be a person of color or I might be a woman, that doesn't mean that I'm any less of a leader or any less of a crazy dreamer than anyone else. And so I think that's been something that I've really taken to heart. And since working at Nike, I've noticed the way that I carry myself, the way that I speak has become more confident and bold. And that's, I think it's a journey too, as you're finding your voice. I think it's been through a lot of different phases of the journey, from high school to college, from having a voice just in front of seven-year-olds in my second grade classroom to like corporate America. I think it's all steps and it's all added up to this. So I'd encourage you as young women to just continue thinking about finding your own voice and not trying to copy anyone else's, even other women's voices, but thinking about what is true to your authentic voice, and realizing you're not going to get there in a day. It's a journey. And taking each experience and kind of integrating that in, and it'll all add to your own unique voice throughout the process.
Yeah, for sure. I totally echo that. The only thing I'll add is that it's also about using your voice to question the status quo, right? So and Nike's taught me a lot of that. It's not that when you show up, and I've been at Nike for a little under a year. So when I first started, it was a lot of like, oh, I don't know the history of the brand or the history of how things are being done. But when you show up at a place, even if you're new, and this probably ties into one of the questions I'm seeing in the chat window talk about how it's okay to say that you don't know how to do something, right? Especially when you're new at a role, just leveraging your voice and questioning, okay, I understand that this is how things have always been done, but it's curious that we don't do it this other way, or like what, and again, coming from a place of humility, because you're still learning and you're trying to figure out the process, and understanding and questioning the status quo, I think is very important, and it's done all the time at Nike, and it's Nike's taught me to give myself that permission to do more of that.
I'm gonna have to second the comment you guys made about finding your own voice. I'm going to say this again. There's only one of you, and you are amazing. And I think this webinar was amazing. We definitely went over a lot, and we got a lot of very useful information. Thank you guys so much. We have one more question, and it's going to, this was our favorite question that we came up with. It's going to require a little bit of thinking and reflecting. So it's, if you could create your own shoe line sold by Nike, what would it look like? What kind of message would be included behind it? And what movement would you want to create with it?
I'll take a first shot if that's okay, Eunice. I probably not super out there, but for me, the one common thing I've struggled with throughout my life has been this idea of being able to have it all, right? So being able to, as a woman, not be cast into this mold of, oh, you can only do certain types of, educational degrees. And so for me, it was, I wanted to do mechanical engineering. That's not typically a field pursued by many women. But I believe that I could have it all. Same thing now that I categorize myself as an ambitious go-getter when it comes in the professional field. But at the same time, I want to be a nurturing mom to my 3-year-old. And I don't believe that it is one or the other, that I can only be a nurturing mom or I can be a ambitious career woman. I believe that I can be both and anything that I want to be. So my idea for the shoe, Leslie, to answer your question, would be if it's not a fully baked idea, obviously, but it would be a shoe or a pair of, it's a pair of shoes, right? So one shoe in one color and the other shoe in another color. So my daughter loves pink, but she also loves the crazy yellows and the blues and the oranges, right? So if she can wear a shoe that is both pink and blue, right, a pair of shoes, start demonstrating that from a young age, that it's not just about choosing one thing to give up another thing, but being able to incorporate both choices into her personality, into whatever that she wants to pursue, I think would be cool.
Yeah, I love that. For me, I think something that I've learned, just talking to more designers at Nike, how there's a story behind every shoe that's designed. And I think at Nike, everyone talks about the power of storytelling and stories. And so if I were to create a shoe, I would want it to kind of tell my story. And for me, I think being Korean American, I often say I represent the hyphen in between those two words. And I think that's, I would want my shoe to kind of represent my heritage and honor my past and motherland, but also be proud of being American and fully American as well. And thinking about how those two cultures kind of merge together. So what designs and imagery could kind of capture that. And then lastly, I think what's so powerful about Nike is its values. And so I would want my shoe to kind of capture the values that I represent. And I think now we can see that it's really important at the forefront right now, but I think one is equality, and that's a value that Nike really stands behind. And so I would want the shoe that represents me to also represent the values that I espouse.
Sorry, I had myself on mute. Thank you so much for those responses. Like I said earlier, both are very great ideas. Like I said earlier, we have learned quite a lot today, and I think this was a very beneficial webinar. I'm going to pass it over to Cindy and Diane, but thank you so much for answering our questions today. It was lots of fun, and hopefully I think we are having a part 2. So we will see you at our part 2.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Eunice. And thank you, Aquila and Jasmin and Leslie. Great job as always.
Yeah, This was a great one, as always. And again, Clayton, thank you. If you're somewhere here in the mysterious people that are watching, I thought, you know what? I know that we lost the other speaker on the call, but I thought that both of you should probably, if Nike doesn't have you in product development, you should be in product development, because both of those products are rock star great products. So loved all that. And the funny thing is, I know that y'all can't see, but my glasses, I just looked at them the whole time about branding. They're Nike.
All right.
So it's always great to work for a company that the branding thing is out there, and you feel proud every day walking into the building and just being a part of that. And thank you for helping our young leaders of tomorrow to be as great as you two women are. So thank you. And then Diane, if you have any other closing comments, I'm going to go out because I got to go back to Go for the Greens conference.
Okay, thanks everyone. And we just want to let you know that we have 3 more weeks worth of these webinars. So, so please join us next week, the week after, and the week after that. So we will have 2 more guest speakers from Nike coming up soon, right? Eunice's colleagues, and then we'll have some other surprise speakers for you. So please watch our emails, and we'll see you soon. Have a great night.